What is up, everybody? December 7th, 2025. So, yes, this is the anniversary of the Pearl Harbor bombings in Hawaii. Definitely know that as a conspiracy theorist, there is some spidey senses tingling about that particular event, but we're not here to talk about that event tonight. Before I get much further, let me say cheers to you and yours. Tonight we are drinking Whistle Pig Snout to Tail 10-year bourbon. It's actually like really good. This is a very smooth, like, so I'm making up my own terms. I know that things seem like on a sweet side to me, and then things seem like on a spicy side to me. So while I do have a bourbon collection, I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily like the bourbon connoisseur. So yeah, my palate is from sweet to spicy, and this one is like really sweet. This is a good one to not be like, making all the faces. So at any rate, cheers. 30 years ago, most people that know me know that I am a window tinter. It's my trade. I have my own window tinting business. And where a lot of that got its start from initially was that I did that when I was in high school. So my brother's car was one of the first cars I ever did anything with window tint wise, and that was enough to get like the ball rolling, so to speak. And at some point later in time, I came into my first job of tinting windows, and that was literally 30 years ago this past week. So tonight, we're going to take a little bit of a break. I know that I've been talking about some big, heavy, big picture, gloom and doom type of things, but tonight I just kind of wanted to kind of chill, relax, take, I'm in the fun seat, drinking my bourbon. I want to take you back through probably one of the craziest stories of my life. And me and my two friends from high school, we were supposed to go into the Navy together on the buddy program. That's where you all go at the same time with the same kind of sort of same plan so that you guys would all end up on a ship together or whatever your first duty location would be or whatever. So the three of us were supposed to go into the Navy together. One of us went at the pre-subscribed scheduled time. One of us ended up going about a month later and got kicked out because you can't study for drug tests. Who knew? Anyway, a little bit more information that I probably wanted to share about myself. But yeah, I got kicked out of the Navy because I couldn't pass a drug test. My friend ended up in the Navy. He got stationed out on the West Coast. He was in Bremerton, Washington. I got kicked out, and I went down this path that eventually led me to the 94-95 school year living in Kent. And the real basis of it is that I like to go to the nightclubs in Kent, especially like the Thursday night nightclubs, because if you went to school in the 90s, typically you had Monday, Wednesday classes, Tuesday, Thursday classes. You didn't really typically have Friday classes. And so Thursday night was more or less like the Friday night in the college town. The Thursday night at the club in 94 was, Tootsie Roll. Tootsie Roll to the left, to the left. Anyway, yeah, come on. If you're my age or older, you know what I'm talking about. I found that it was easier to just move to Kent than to drive to Kent 2 times a week. And I quit my job and I moved to Kent, and I lived in the dorms in Kent, and I did not attend school at Kent. I was even friends with the resident advisor on the floor that I lived in when I lived in Kent. But clearly you could tell that that's not a great long-term plan to live in Kent in the dorms when you don't go to Kent State. The person who I was rooming with got basically kicked out of school for academic probation, and then me and him ended up trying to find some other people that we could share a room with, even though he and I were both not going to school. Fast forward to towards the end of the school year, me and my other not attending Kent person, we went in together with another person, and we ended up getting an apartment. But we were all knuckleheads, and we were all involved in things that we shouldn't have been involved with. And at one point in time, coming home to hang out in Steubenville for a particular weekend, one of my roommates tried to set up a 2-pound weed deal with a guy from Pittsburgh and apparently an undercover narcotics officer. So I found myself homeless pretty quickly and had to close on my back and was now relegated to being in Steubenville. As it turns out, my very good friend, the only one of the three of us going into the Navy on the buddy plan that didn't necessarily want to go but went because the other of us were going, he also left the Navy. And I will say it at that because I can't speak to how the Navy transpired for him. He had a daughter, a couple-month-old daughter that was living out in Washington State, even though he was back home in Steubenville visiting. And I was, like I said, couch surfing, because I had no place else to go. And I was too proud to say, hey, Mom, hey, Dad. Yeah, I done messed up. Russell needed to go back. He was only kind of hanging out here, and I really wasn't doing anything except for just being here. Russell asked me one day, he was like, you should probably come out to Bremerton, Washington with me. And I said, when are we leaving? Like, I don't even think that the words finished coming out of his mouth before I was like, when are we leaving, bro? Something that I come to find out later down the road is that all the time that Russell was in Steubenville, he had a bus ticket to go back to Bremerton, Washington. And he could have used that through some specific period of time, and he just didn't. And it wasn't because he didn't want to go back out there, and it wasn't because he didn't want to be involved with his lady and his child. If he was here to tell you, he would tell you that there was something else that he needed to do, and what that something else was is he needed to get me out of Steubenville. And he didn't really know that at the time. He just knew that there was something more that was supposed to take place while he was here. We had a friend who lived in St. Clairsville, and this friend was going to be leaving to go to Cape Cod with another friend of theirs. And they decided that they were going to help us out, and they were going to buy us bus tickets. Same day that they were leaving to go to Cape Cod, they dropped us off at the bus terminal, and we were going in to get on a bus to see you later, Steubenville, and they were leaving that moment to go, hey, we'll be back in a week or so because we're going on vacation. And we walked into the bus terminal and we went up to the counter and we said to the lady, blah, 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 we're here to pick up tickets, this and that. And the lady took one look at us and said, I could look at both of you and know that neither of you are the name of the person that these tickets are reserved in. Unless you produce me that person, sorry, but you're not getting tickets to get on this bus. We were packed. We were ready to go. We had a plan, half baked as it was. We had a plan, and the plan completely fell through. And so now, wallowing in misery, we walked from the bus terminal downtown Steubenville up to Wellesley on Laybell. Right at the very beginning, as you come up the hill from Laybell up onto Wellesley from down like Capri Subs and whatnot. Listen, sorry. I speak as though everybody just knows Steubenville left and right. If you're from Steubenville, you know where I'm talking about. If you're not from Steubenville, Google it, I guess. 3rd Street Bus Terminal, Capri Subs, one of the very first houses on Wellesley. We were going to Russell's brother's. His brother wasn't home. And so now we need to walk to the other side of Laybell where we're both staying, where I'm couch surfing and Russell is also kind of hanging out. We get to the corner and I go to take a step and it's as though something is like holding me back from taking this step. The only way that I know how to describe it is that it felt as though something reached into me and grabbed a hold of my spine to like stop me dead in my tracks. I just knew instantly like I need to leave. I need to leave Steubenville and I need to leave right now. So Russell, being the very good friend that he was at the time, he kind of chuckled. And then he realized that I wasn't joking. And he was like, well, what do you want to do? We already had a plan, and the plan clearly didn't work. So what do you want to do? Let's hitchhike. I'm ready to hitchhike to Seattle, Washington, because I got to get out of Steubenville, and I got to get out of Steubenville now. And he looked at me, he said, if you're down, I'm down. Let's go. We're already packed. And so we did. We left that very minute. We walked from Laybell out to John Scott Highway exit. We walked down onto US 22 and we started hitchhiking. The second car to pass us, and I mean like we put our thumb out and it was like zoom, second car. Like that amount of time. And we were hitchhiking for probably like 25 seconds, and the second vehicle that passed pulled over and picked us up. So we get in this car with this guy, and this guy is basically like, hey, what's going on? Strangers that are getting into my car for a ride. We're riding for a minute, and he's basically like, yeah, where are you guys going? And we said, Seattle. And he just kind of laughed at us. And then he got quiet for a minute. And he was like, grew up in the 60s, did a lot of hitchhiking, hitchhiked all over the United States. So I remember times sitting for days. He said there was one particular day I remember being in South Carolina that it was just nonstop raining and I was stuck under an overpass and I was starving and nobody would pick me up. He's like, and that was back in the time when hitchhiking was a well-known thing and people didn't mind giving people rides. But this is November of 1995. And he's like, yeah, I don't know how you guys are going to fare trying to get to Seattle, Washington. Do you guys have any gas money? And I kind of shot Russell a look, and he kind of shot me a look back, and it was like, no, dude, we don't have gas money for you. And before we could even like kind of finish the thoughts of, no, dude, we don't have gas money for you. He's like, listen, I'm not asking for gas money for me. He's like, I have a car. I have a car that I've been trying to sell for the last 6 months. It's sitting in my front yard. It ain't going to get you to Seattle. He's like, but I haven't had one person come and even look at it, test drive it, nothing. He's like, I'll sign it over to you guys right now. Bet. Let's go. So this guy drove us out to Richmond. We went to his house. He had a 1975 Chrysler New Yorker. And he did. He had a title. He signed it right over on the spot. I checked nothing. I checked this much about the car. I never checked an ounce of fluid. I never looked to see if there was a radiator cap. I didn't smell it to see if it smelled like burning oil. Nothing. I couldn't even tell you if there was a license plate on the back of the car, honestly. But dude signed it over to us and we left. We never transferred title. We never went to any kind of courthouse. However, for as long as this much of the day had taken, we knew that it wasn't in our best interest to leave right then. We went and we showed everybody that we had been around that, hey, holy crap, this guy gave us a car. But we also knew that our friends were in Cape Cod, and we decided that we were going to go where they lived. We knew where they stashed keys at. We went and we stayed the night there, which was in St. Clairsville, which put us on the interstate. Now, I'm not proud of this next part, but it is a relevant, truthful part of the whole story. This person worked at a place in St. Clairsville, and they had keys to the place, and they knew that the cameras inside of the place weren't recording, and they also knew that I don't even know how we ended up with this information, to be honest with you. I guess the criminal element just like pulls information out of people for whatever reason. But I knew that they had like $100 in the till, and I went and I helped myself to the $100 out of that till so that we would have money. I knew that $100 wasn't going to get us to Seattle, but it was better than the nothing that we had. We had nothing. So we got up the next day. We went to the local Kroger. We got some bread and some Carl Buddig turkey. Being born and raised in Steubenville, like if you're from here, about the only places that you end up going from here is like up and down the East Coast. So you might go to Virginia Beach, Myrtle, Daytona, whatever. Anything that you see that's like a sign on the highway that says, this and that, next exit. We got to South Dakota, and we get to the western part of South Dakota, and there's these signs everywhere talking about Mount Rushmore. Being from here, we think it says Mount Rushmore next right. So we think we're going to get off the next exit, go down a couple blocks, hang a right, maybe go like on the other side of town, and there's Mount Rushmore. No, sir. Mount Rushmore is so far from the beaten path. Mount Rushmore, listen, by all means, if you're out that way and you have the opportunity to go see Mount Rushmore, you should definitely get off the exit, that interstate, and go check out Mount Rushmore. It's definitely worth the visit. But Mount Rushmore is not something that's close to the highway at all. So away we went in this old rickety 75 Chrysler New Yorker. And this is the Black Hills of South Dakota. So you're going up hills and down valleys and up hills and down valleys and up hills and down. That is not something that's conducive to an old rickety car. I say all that just to say that the car started overheating on us while we are meandering through the Black Hills of South Dakota. And we went to Mount Rushmore that day, spent Thanksgiving Day, 1995, at Mount Rushmore. It was really cool. It was a pretty neat thing to see. It put stress on the car, and the car was overheating. And so we left and we drove. We kept having problems with it overheating from the moment that we left Mount Rushmore. We stopped at the exit in Gillette, Wyoming, and I didn't know anything about cars at the time. I was 20 years old at this point. So we stopped at the gas station, and I just automatically think that there's some type of a leak because in my brain, that's what made it to where it was overheating. And so I bought some stuff, some stop leak stuff, which who knows if any stop leak stuff had ever been put in this radiator before we decided to try it. And yeah, I think that I killed the car with some cooling system stop leak, because we got about 7 miles west of Gillette, Wyoming, and the car just completely died on us. And so we stayed the night in the car, Thanksgiving night, 1995. So this starts our journey of not being in a car, and this is when things get like really kind of weird and like providential, I would say. So we get out of the car, we start walking. We're not very far, like we can still see the car. We're not that far down the road, and some guy stops and picks us up. Some old guy that's retired that's out in Wyoming fishing. And he just takes us for like, I don't know, an hour and a half beyond where we're at. So now we're not even to any kind of a point of returning to the car. We're definitely whatever. Not to mention the car broke down at a place that was like thousands of miles, like 1,500 miles away from where we started. Thank God the car broke down when and where it did. If it would have broken down in a way that it would have been closer and easier for us to get to Steubenville, then it would have been closer and easier to get to Seattle. I just feel like we would have ended up right back in Steubenville. It was a very surreal trip from that point. So we got ride after ride after ride. We got all kind of different rides. Every single time that we were supposed to go over mountains, over mountain passes, we always got a ride. We were never trying to like hike up a mountain pass. And anytime that we would be in a car, that would be like when like the rain or the snow would happen. And then it just seemed like any single time that somebody would stop and let us out, like the clouds would break, the sun would come out, would be shining on our face. It was a very strange thing. Friday we were traveling, which was probably good because, you know, like coming into the weekend, people are traveling and going places. They're not necessarily just like commuting to work and whatnot. So we get picked up by these guys that are from Quebec. And they're in a big giant Winnebago. They don't speak English. We don't speak French. And all these guys could do is they had a map. They had like an atlas on them, like a book. And they were pointing on the map saying that they were going to Cody, Wyoming, which is like the last stop before you get to Yellowstone. And these guys were basically going to Yellowstone. And we're, hey man, whatever. You're taking us further than where we're at right now? Sure. You guys are going to Cody, Wyoming. I guess we're going to Cody, Wyoming too. Now, one thing that I can tell you for sure about this trip is that every single time we were in a vehicle, Russell would go to sleep. People that were in the military, they could fall asleep anywhere because they knew that there was only certain times, certain places that they were going to get an opportunity to get some sleep. So every single time that we were in a vehicle, Russell was out. And I am just not that trustworthy of strangers out in the middle of nowhere in the United States that these guys aren't going to try to make a skin suit out of Scott. So I was up every ride. I'm sitting as close as I can to the driver. I'm in the shotgun seat in every single car. But, you know, we get in with the Winnebago with these guys. And listen, they take us on this like scenic road that was just incredible. Like it was beautiful. It was such a beautiful car ride to take to see some of the sights of the Rocky Mountains in Wyoming. And when we pull into Cody, like the sun is just now going over the mountains. The first night that we have out, not having any idea, you know, what we're doing, where we're going or whatever. And so we walked to the edge of town, and I don't even think that we were like trying to hitchhike. I think that we were just like walking, and this car passes us, and they go down the street and they turn around and they come past us again. And like at this point, I say to Russell, I'm like, you know, it's about to go down, dude. I don't know what the deal is, but these people, they went past us, they turned around, they came past us, they turned around and went past us again, type of a thing. And these people, they did that a couple of different times, and they finally pull up next to us, and it's like an old couple. Like, she was very emphatic to like point this out to me. She was like, we never, ever, ever would ever stop for anything like this. But there was just something that told us that we needed to come back and pick you guys up. And so these guys, they picked us up, and they were going to the next town, which was Powell, Wyoming, which I'm not exactly sure how far that is. I think it's like 50, 60 miles down the road. I could be wrong, but they took us to Powell, Wyoming. And when we got to Powell, back then, Subway had this promotional thing where they had sub club stamps, and they had these cards. They were like business card size cards, and you would collect these stamps. Every time that you would go and buy Subway subs, they would give you stamps depending on how much money you spent or whatever. And you could fill these cards up, and once you filled a card up, you can get a free sandwich. So they had several of those, which they gave us so that we can go to the local Subway and get some free food. And they told us about a place that we could go and stay the night, some kind of a shelter, but we couldn't find a shelter. Here we are, we're in Powell, Wyoming, we're walking through Powell, and something about like being out and knowing like the evening was coming to an end, and we definitely didn't feel like we fit in or belonged in Powell, Wyoming. You know, we're like baggy pants wearing hip hop Steubenville dudes from the early 90s, and we're in Powell, Wyoming, which I'm sure is like, you know, shotgun pickup truck, you know, waving the American flag out the back of your Chevy Silverado type of thing. We're kind of like on edge. And even at some point in time, me and Russell, we were arguing about which way to go, even though I think in the end we were both basically saying to go the same way. Just I wanted to go down this road and he wanted to go down that road. It was pretty stressful. It was like we're out in the middle of nowhere. We don't know anybody. We don't know anything. We're young. We're vulnerable. How are we going to sleep tonight kind of a thing? And we ended up getting to the edge of town. And on the far edge of town, there's a Welcome to Powell sign. And across the street from the Welcome to Powell sign is a little park. And right next to the little park was like a bathroom, like type of a thing. So we at least had a place to go to the bathroom. And we were just leaning up against the Welcome to Powell, Wyoming sign, just like arrest us. You know, at least we would have someplace to sleep if somebody were to arrest us. But this guy came past in a ranchero, which if you don't know what a ranchero is like the forged generic version of an El Camino. This guy comes past and he's like, he rolls his windows down and he's like, "You boys ain't from around here, are you?" And he just had like this very peculiar voice and accent. And they're like, "No." He's like, he said, "Come on, guys, I'll give you a ride." And so we got in this car with this guy. And what was amazing about this was that the guy just lived a few miles down the road, and he lived in a trailer park, and he owned another trailer that was down the street from where his trailer was at. And he was like, "Listen, I got a spare trailer. It ain't got electricity. It ain't got heat, but it's got a roof over your head. And you guys are more than welcome to stay there the night." So we did. We took him up on that, and we had, you know, at least a carpeted floor to snuggle up against. And that's where we slept that night. I ended up giving the guy the title to the car that was all the way back in Gillette, Wyoming, even though I'd never put it in my name, and I don't know if the guy would have ever had any kind of a ability to go and get it or if he ever did anything with it. But I did give the guy the title to that car and told him where it was at. But the next day, we got up, and that guy gave us a ride. He gave us a ride down to the next highway, and that highway would eventually get you to Billings, Montana. And somebody gave us a ride and got us to Billings, Montana. And it would be a tragedy for me to tell this story and not talk about that there was a guy that picked us up that had his kids with him and the little girl. So the guy wanted to tell us all of this amazing history about where they lived and how he and his kids would find arrowheads everywhere and this battle happened here and this, that, and everything else. But I distinctly remember the little girl was tired of hearing her dad talk about all this crap. And so she just kept saying, "Daddy, my ears are tired. Daddy, my ears are tired. Daddy, my ears are tired." And it's just, I have to share that part with you. It's just a funny part of the story. But at any rate, sometime in western Montana, we get picked up by these two guys that are in a Camaro. And the thing about the Camaro is that the Camaro is set up and situated in such a way that somebody who is a paraplegic can drive it. You know, paraplegic still has function of their top half. So this thing has like some type of a rod, some type of a thing, a mechanism that is connected to both the gas pedal and the brake. Because if the thing went to this way, then it would do the gas. But if it went this way, it would do the brake. And this guy, he had it like on the other side of his leg and literally had, this car was like wide open. He drove crazily from western Montana through Idaho which through that part of Idaho is lots of mountain passes, lots of windy roads, and these guys didn't care at all. Like, we were definitely on the cusp of death in this car with these guys going from western Montana to Spokane, which is the ride that they gave us. But these guys, they were a little bit sketchy. They had loud blaring music in the Camaro. We're trapped in the back seat of a Camaro. You can't get out unless these guys get out and move the seat up for you, kind of a thing. And at some point in time, somewhere deep in the heart of dark, desolate, nothing Idaho, these guys just pull over at some random exit. And it's just like, are we about to be part of a Lifetime movie some way, somehow? But they were just switching off because whoever had been driving too long and whatever. So these guys get us to Spokane, Washington. And Spokane, I didn't sleep. So I slept the nights. I slept the night in the car, which wasn't a very good night's sleep. I slept the night in the trailer, which wasn't a very good night's sleep. And Russell slept not only those times, but slept in all the cars. We get to Spokane. These guys drop us off. We're at a Albertsons. I got some Black and Milds because it was just kind of like a celebratory. Made it to Washington State, even though we're like completely on the other side of the state. We make our way back onto the interstate and we start hitchhiking. And a Washington State policeman like instantly stops and comes and is like, hitchhiking's illegal in the state of Washington. Like, oh, sorry, dude, we didn't know. Well, it doesn't matter that you don't know. That's illegal. And hold on, I'm getting a call. And he gets this call and he's like, you know what? It's your lucky day, guys. I have to take this call. I need to go where this is at, but I can't just leave you on the side of the road. I did want to arrest you and take you down and book you and find out who you guys were, but I've got more important things that I need to do. So I'm going to take you down to the next exit, leave you guys at the truck stop. You guys are more than welcome to try to get a ride from somebody while you're in there, but you cannot hitchhike on roads in Washington State. Cool. So we go into the truck stop and Russell gets on the phone and he calls his girlfriend and I don't think that she really believed that we were in Washington, kind of a thing. But I noticed that over there was a Motel 6 being built. And I was the first customer of Motel 6 on whatever exit in Spokane, Washington that happened to be. I very happily went inside and found myself a nice clean piece of cement that was eventually going to be a bedroom. And I put my head down and I slept like a baby because I slept that entire night. It was light outside. At some point in time, I get up, I go, Russell's still on the phone. I think he talked all night long on the phone with his girlfriend, but we kind of figure we're gonna give this another shot, and we did. We got some kind of a ride that got us far enough outside of Spokane that we weren't going to be around the state police anymore, and we eventually got we were out in the middle of nowhere, and some lady gave us a ride, and she had two dogs and a wolf in her car with us. Russell was kicking it with the two dogs and the wolf in the back seat, and she gave us a ride out into the middle of nowhere, middle of the state of Washington, and we eventually got a ride from these two guys that were in a pickup truck, and we ended up sitting in the back of this pickup truck, and they were going to Seattle. And something about knowing that the trip was basically over, I slept again like a baby in the back of that truck. And they did. They took us to downtown Seattle. They took us to the ferry terminal in downtown Seattle. I believe from here to there, it's something like 2,600 miles to get from here to the ferry terminal. And yeah, so from the time that we left Wednesday morning until we got to 11th Street, Bremerton, Washington, that was 5 days. But we got there Sunday. It was definitely like an early dinner time. We had a Bigfoot pizza from, I think Pizza Hut had Bigfoot pizza. I had probably one of the best showers I've ever had in my life. Not to be all weird with you about a shower, but there's a lot of different things that I could say about that trip. But a couple of things stand out. Number one is timing. So the fact that everything happened the way that it did the day that we were going to supposedly get on the bus, and the timing involved to go from there up to Russell's brother's house, to then being unable to take another step. And that course of time put us on this very specific timeline path to put us out on Route 22 at a specific moment in time. Like I said, when we started hitchhiking, we hitchhiked for literally like 20 some seconds. And the second vehicle, zoom, second vehicle, like that much time stops and gets us and gives us a car. Gives us a car that takes us like past all types of problems. Like, I don't know what it would have been like to hitchhike through Chicago. I don't know what it would have been like to try to hitchhike through Milwaukee or any of that. Not to mention, like, when we drove through all that place, it was cold. It was cold through Minnesota and Wisconsin. And what was weird is when we got to like the mountainous parts, people were like, it's not usually like this. Like, you can't usually get through here this time of the year. This is usually snow inundated. Like, the timing of everything really is huge. But bigger than that to me was like I was being introduced to God. And like, I know that I grew up in a household where my mom taught me how to pray, and I know that like I had like an understanding of the idea of God, but like that trip really introduced me to God, because it was like this strange obedience to this overwhelming feeling of you have to leave, and you have to leave right now, all the way back on the corner of Wellesley and I don't even know what that side street is. Like, I was totally introduced to God, and I got to see God's creation through especially that trip that I got to take and experience through the mountains with those guys from Quebec. And it was probably good that those guys didn't speak any English, because if so, I would have probably been engaged in conversation with those guys and would have never had an opportunity to see like God's handiwork readily displayed right there. But more than all that, and how I tie this into this big narrative of everything else that I've been talking about, is that we systematically were handed off from one micro to another micro to another micro. And all of this was essentially like me at Russell's micro. But I'm blown away by the hospitality and the generosity and just the overall mercy and grace of that trip. We were given a car. We were given a place to stay. We were given the means to eat. We got ride after ride after ride. And then when it was all said and done, Russell's girlfriend, who knew me from nothing, welcome to my house. You're perfectly welcome and loved to be here. And I trust you with being around my daughter, and I understand you and your situation. Here you go. I know I didn't really want to put names out there, but Christy, thank you very much. I really appreciate what you helped to do at that time in my life. But all the timing and the coincidences don't even stop there, because like I said at the very beginning of all this is where tinting windows starts for me. And how does that transpire? Well, let me tell you, Russell was in the Navy with a guy who had a shop in Bremerton. That's what they did. They tinted windows. And so a week later, not the following day Monday, but the week later Monday, which is right about now, 30 years ago, Russell introduces me to Terry. Terry gives me an impromptu interview on the spot. And I said the stuff that Terry wanted to hear, which made him say, come on in. And between Terry and some other people that worked at Terry's, I learned how to tint windows, which is what I still do to this day. But it doesn't stop there, because a great number of years prior, Christy attended a youth group that my wife was involved with. And so at some point in time, Christy was like, you know what? I know who would be perfect for you. You should meet LaDon. And all these years later, I'm very happy to say that LaDon and I are still happily married people. 30 years ago, Russell and I took a trip that was one of the quintessential points of my life. I've had lots of bigger events from then till now. Getting married, having children, certainly much bigger events than hitchhiking with my friend across country. But it was a very monumental event that took place in my life. And the timing and the interweavings of God through all of that has had a lasting impact on me till this day. Yeah, this is This is definitely one of the craziest stories that I have from my life. How it ties into the big picture of everything that we've been talking about so far. A lot of random individuals that I had never met before and I never knew before then affect me now, 30 years later. So there you have it. There's the craziest, weird background story of my life that has so many insightful impacts and things of my life. I went to Washington. I learned how to tint windows. I met my wife, had my first child, picked up the Bible in Washington State. I'll leave you with that. I'll leave you with that for now. It was important for me to tell this story for a whole bunch of different reasons, and I hope you can appreciate me sharing with you. Till next time, thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. I hope that you will subscribe to the channel. I hope you will like the video, share, comment. Until next time, peace.